Communication between individuals from different cultures can always be tricky. Even if the two communicators speak the same language, differing expectations for communication styles and norms can get in the way of achieving mutual understanding. Intercultural communication will always be improved if the communicators spend the time to understand some of the communication norms and cultural background that the other is working with. In this speech, I will give a brief outline of the general communication style of the Japanese culture. I will give an overview of the high context nature of the Japanese culture. I will speak about the importance of maintaining harmony. I will explain the significance of silence to Japanese communication. And finally, I will introduce the concept of kotodama. Edward Hall places cultures on a continuum of low context to high context. High context cultures prefer messages in which most of the meaning is either implied by the physical setting or is presumed to be part of the individual's internalized beliefs, values, norms, and social practices. Low context cultures, on the other hand, prefer messages in which the information is contained within the explicit code. Western cultures are often very low context. Verbal communication and direct communication is preferred. Japan, however, is a very high context culture. It is understood that most people will have the same internalized beliefs and values, and therefore less has to be verbalized. This is due to the collectivist nature of the Japanese culture. Which brings us to our next point of harmony. Due to the collectivist nature, communication norms are centered around maintaining harmony. It is rare that the Japanese will speak plainly or state opinions. It's used to avoid conflict and maintain this harmony. Speaking plainly is seen as childish and unsophisticated. Another factor that contributes to this harmony is gift giving. If you receive a gift in Japan, you are expected to return the gift, and you are indebted to the giver until you return the favor, which can be confusing to outsiders as gift giving is seen as a free act without any long-term obligation. The next significant factor of Japanese communication is silence. Silence is very significant to Japanese communication, and it is far more than just a pause between words. Sally Jones outlines 4 dimensions of silence in her article, Speech is Silver, Silence is Golden. Those dimensions are truthfulness, social discretion, embarrassment, and defiance. Silence and nonverbals are often seen as far more truthful than words, and verbal communication really can't be trusted. You must focus on the nonverbal cues and the context of the situation to get the full message that is trying to be communicated. Social discretion is the next dimension of silence in Japan. Silence is used to maintain face or social image. You can avoid damaging your social image by staying silent. For example, a student may not answer a teacher's question when called on in class in order to show respect, avoid disagreeing with the teacher, or saying something incorrect. It goes back to the concept of harmony and avoiding conflict. The next dimension is embarrassment. In romantic relationships, verbal signs of affection are often seen as embarrassing. The strength of a relationship is judged by a couple's ability to communicate non-verbally. This can be confusing to outsiders as the relationship seems cold or unloving. However, in Japan, couples are seen as one entity and therefore should be able to communicate without the use of words. The final element of silence in Japanese communication is defiance. Certain nonverbals can be used to show defiance or disrespect, which can be confusing because there are so many nonverbals that show respect or communicate your message, but defiance can also be one communicated element of silence. For example, prolonged eye contact is seen as very disrespectful in Japan, which can be confusing to outsiders as in Western cultures and in America. We see eye contact as a way of showing that you are paying attention and following what the speaker is saying. This is not the case in Japan. It's an important distinction to understand. The final element that I would like to cover is kotodama. This is the belief that a word itself has the power to make something happen. It's an outdated, superstitious belief, however, it still is significant to Japanese communication, and it's a potential factor for why silence is so significant in Japan. Many would rather avoid verbalizing something and having it happen. They would rather just stay silent. So in conclusion, we have talked about the high context nature of Japanese culture. We talked about the importance of harmony and how that has to do with the collectivist nature of Japan. We talked about the significance of silence and the 4 dimensions that can be identified in Japanese silence. Those dimensions are truthfulness, social discretion, embarrassment, and defiance. And finally, we spoke about the belief of kotodama. If you are planning on traveling to Japan, it's important to keep these nonverbal communication in mind and to be more comfortable with silence. If you keep these things in mind, you will make it much farther in your communication in